So I have this Rollei 6008 AF, and it's got a phase 1 H20 back onto it. It was modified by the Canadian government. And so anyways, I was buying an 80mm for this, and how excited would you guys be about this? I bought a supposed mint condition 80mm, and when it arrived, it had no lens caps, completely dirty everywhere. I've cleaned it up since, and the elements are just full of fungus. So I was so excited about that. Good thing I know somebody that knows how to fix this stuff. But the guy, I complained, and it was eBay, and so he gave me a really hefty refund. So now I'm pretty excited as long as I can clean this thing. It's a pretty easy lens to repair. So it's similar to Nikon and Mamiya lenses, so it's not a huge deal. Anyways, this is the Rollei Carl Zeiss Lens, 80mm 2.8 PQS. So let's tear into this thing and see if we can fix her up. I'm trying to tell where the fungus is in this thing, and I don't think I have to go to the rear elements. I don't think it's the rear elements. I think it's just the front assembly, and usually where fungus settles most of the time is going to be between the aperture, where the aperture is, between the rear elements and the front elements. There's a space where the aperture slides, and when you focus or zoom a lens, it'll suck in moisture and get stuck there. So I'm hoping it's going to be mostly there and not in the rear assembly, but I do see it on the front elements, the very, very front element. There is some fungus, so I have to do that. So we'll see how far I have to go. Now, you guys want to be careful, because in here there's I don't know, is it 3 springs and a bearings, or 4 or something like that, but when I take this nameplate out, this is going to pop off, so I'm going to hold this down to make sure that it doesn't do that. And then I'm going to turn it over because I don't want those things to go everywhere. There's notches where they can seat in here. So there's the springs. They're seated in there, and the bearings are on this side or the other side? They're on this side. So there's bearings in there. So just set that aside. We gotta take the front assembly out, the element assembly. This is usually really tight in here. So we're gonna put a spanner on this notch and on this notch. They're kind of the box style. You guys want to be very careful. It's really tight. Okay, so I'm very excited. I think that the fungus is only, as I said, in between the aperture and in the front element. I don't want to start cleaning it. I'm just going to try and pull this front element as well. So, take my thing here. This is called a rubber spanner. This is the eBay rubber spanner, and this is actually not rubber, it's a silicone. And I shouldn't have bought the silicone ones because they're silicone, and silicone's not that sticky. So if you're gonna buy spanners, try and find actual rubber ones. They grip a million times better. They can leave grease marks, but if you have really tight, I prefer the rubber ones. I'll just put it that way. These ones can kind of suck. They don't grip very well. But there's another trick I'm gonna do here. You just take some tape. I just use some boxing tape, just basic boxing tape. All I did was tear off some sheets and roll it up to little whatever things, and I set them in there, and then I used my spanner, and it worked. So it's a lot more grippy to do it that way than the silicone things. But anyways, we got the elements. So I actually went and washed my hands again, and I recommend you guys do the same. I washed my hands before I started this, but I want to wash my hands one more time before I start touching the elements. I just use a soap that's very non-moisturizing, just a dry bar soap. I'm going to clean this element first. Okay, so I looked inside of here and there's no fungus, luckily. I'm very thankful for that. So we're just going to put some cleaner on a cloth, and we're going to try and remove this fungus. I hope it didn't destroy the, there's a multi-coating on this element. I'm hoping it didn't destroy the multi-coating, obviously, but we'll see what happens. So I'm very excited. There is no multi-coating damage. Woohoo! So I'm going to polish this and then reinstall it. So what I always do is I install it and then I inspect it to make sure there's no dust, even though I'm pretty sure there's not going to be any dust. So we'll just double check. So when I put the ring on, I put it in and then I turn it backwards until I feel it click. Then I know it's seated and I'm not going to bind the threads. There, so it clicks. And now I'm going to spin it forward and I know it's in. Now I'm not going to tape it. I'm not going to do the tape tighten. I'm just going to tighten it by this because this is going to be tight enough. And yeah, now that I can see the element against the black, there's completely no fungus, no multi-coating wrecked. On Pentax lenses, it always seems to destroy the Pentax elements or the multi-coating. Really sad, but this looks good. So I'm going to now clean this element and the inner element. When I clean the elements, I usually, every time I pick a new spot on a clean cloth, I start in the center and go out. Just so if there is any oil residue on the outside, I'm going to push it away instead of pull it in. And that, you guys can't see, but that is a clean element. Alright, so yeah, the fungus is totally gone on here too. Now I just got to do this. I won't be able to get a cloth in there at the beginning. I don't want to because I got to get right to the edges. I hate doing this, but I don't really have a choice. I'm actually going to be using a Q-tip. I don't like to do this. I don't like to rub very hard either. And then I'm going to finish with a cloth as best I can in there. There was actually two really large patches of fungus in here, and they were so big that they were growing and they were actually raised, so they're actually built up. Usually fungus lays flat, but it was two patches that were actually raised a bit right in the center, and that means it's been doing its thing for a long time. But anyways, they were only about 4 millimeters across, so they weren't huge, but they were big enough to suck. Anyways, completely cleaned them, they're right on multi-coating, and it didn't eat the multi-coating here as well. Very, very fortunate. Zeiss must do some really good multi-coating, or Rollei, I guess they took over the patent, or whoever has the patent. One thing I want to tell you guys is that there is probably going to be oil around here, so when you're using a cloth going in, you got to really be very careful not to get that on the cloth. If you do get that on your cloth, just chuck the cloth, don't use it. Start new, get a new cloth. Otherwise you will bring oil in there. Anyways, I think everything is good to go. I checked the rear and there is no fungus in the rear. So this lens is 100% clean now. I'm going to just blow the lens out and put it back together. Until you feel it there, it clicked. Now I know the threads are together and not gonna bind. Before I tighten it down, I'm gonna inspect it, make sure there's no dust. You don't need to do it crazy tight, because it's not going anywhere. That little guy has to go into a little hole right here. Okay? Now I just like to press down, don't slide it. Just make sure it feels right. One spring isn't sitting higher than the other or whatever. Out of its place. It looks good. Gonna put this back in, and I press down so it's not holding the plate up. Awesome, I'm going to tighten this down. Now this plate especially doesn't need to be super tight. They don't put them tight at the beginning because they're relying on this spring system. So that looks even. There it is. So now I'm just going to clean the rear elements and the front elements, inspect it, and make sure that everything is all good. Completely, perfectly, crystal clear. So yeah, it worked really well, if you can see. Hope this helps. Talk to you. Bye.